Today we're going to tie a hot spot pheasant tail. I'm using a C400 BL hook, and I'm using a slotted copper tungsten bead. And we're going to start by starting the thread right behind the bead. And make sure the bead is slotted up where I want it. Then I'm going to run the thread right behind the bead until I trap it. Build up enough thread there. Now I'm going to bring the thread back to the tangent between the straight shank part of the hook and the curved part of the hook. Now we're going to take some pheasant tail, and I'm finding on my Czech patterns the tails just aren't holding up. Where I was tying them anatomically correct with 3 to 4 materials, fibers for the tail, I'm now tying it with 5 to 10. So we're going to measure for half the distance, and we're going to keep the material on my side and roll it right up on top. And then I'm going to push my fingers up towards the hook eye, and what that's going to do is cause the tail to stand up. And I'm going to do that with 3, maybe 4 turns. And next I'm going to take a piece of small copper wire for the ribbing. And I'm going to leave a little going forward, and I'm going to wrap this back towards the tail. And right before I get to the tail, I'm going to pull this material over. We went one wrap too far. I'm going to pull it over, and we're going to tie it in right back there. And now I'm going to come forward and tie down the copper ribbing. Now I'm going to grab my material and wrap around the hook point. And try and wrap this. One wrap right next to the other. And I want to take up about half to 2/3 the hook. And I'm a little farther forward than that. And that's fine, because we'll bring the thread back and set the body where I want it. Now I'm going to use my ribbing, and I'm going to come through in evenly spaces, coming through the pheasant tail fibers. 3 to 4 wraps. Cut it off. And I'm going to use the thread to bind down everything right up to the hook point. And I'm going to leave the thread right behind the head, and I'm going to turn around and invert the hook, which actually makes the fly right side up. Now we're going to take a piece of mylar in pearl color in size medium, and we're going to tie this in for the flash. And by tying it in directly behind the eye, if I pull it straight up in a way, I can perfectly center it on top of the hook. Now I'm going to come forward and bring the thread right behind the bead. And I'm going to take 6 rather long fibers of pheasant. And if I pull them straight away from the stem, that will even up the tips so that all the fibers are lined up. Now I'm going to have the tips pointing over the hook eye, and I'm going to measure this to go from about the end of the body to behind the bead, is what I'm looking for in the distance. And I'm going to start it on my side, and I'm going to take 2 or 3 wraps, and if it doesn't push itself up, you can kind of give it a little push, but I want to try and get this so it's sitting right up on top of the hook. Now I'm just going to come back to where the body stops. And now I'm going to take and make sure that this material is straight, the pheasant, so I'll clip it so I have a straight section to tie in. And I'm going to fold over that pheasant and tie it in. Next, I'm going to take 2 pieces of peacock herl, and we're going to tie those in to form the thorax. So I'm tying it on my side. Now I'm just going to wrap these right next to each other until I fill this space up. I'm going to bring it straight up, 3 wraps, and cut it off. Now we're going to grab 3 fibers, and this quite often is the tricky part, is getting exactly, splitting it so I have 3 and 3. And once I split it, I'm going to try and take 1 wrap, and if I kind of pull it down in a way, that'll set it. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the fibers on my side, pull them down in a way, and now I'm going to pull the pheasant tail fibers up for the wing case, and I'm going to take 1 wrap and make sure it's where I want it to be, and then I'm going to grab those legs, take 2 real good tight wraps. We want to keep the thread wraps in this part to a minimum. Now I'm going to bring it straight up, and I'm going to cut it off, and now I'm going to bring the pearl mylar over, and I'm going to take 3 wraps, and as I do my 3 wraps, I'm going to make sure that I try and get some of those fibers tied down and out of the way. Now I'm going to pull the mylar back and take 2 more wraps. I do this to make sure that it doesn't slide out. It's slippery, and sometimes it'll slide out of the thread. Okay, at this point this would be a normal pheasant tail, and I'm going to take 1 3 or 4 turn whip finish, and that would be the fly. For the hot spot, I'm using 8/0 fire orange uni thread. So I'm going to start the thread right on top of where I just had the black thread. 3-4 wraps. Now I'm going to come back and make sure I've got a real nice solid red spot. 6, 8, 10 wraps. Now I'm going to come in and do 2 3-turn whip finishes, and that will complete the hot spot pheasant tail the way I tie it. And this is the second of my 2 best patterns for fishing the lower Owens River for the blue wing olive hat.